Hey guys, welcome back to Coaching Coins YouTube channel. For those that join us, welcome that are new. If you want to see further other videos, please subscribe to my channel and that will give you an automatic alert. For today, I will do several videos on interviewing. This first one will be on the logistics of interviews, and then the second one will be on some questions that you should ask on your actual interview. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. In terms of checklist, as a P4 student, if you are currently on your rotations, really ask your preceptor what they allow in terms of missing dates. You also want to check with the school. Most schools are very lenient and understand that students do have to miss some either not classes, or it could be classes or rotations days to make up for the interview sessions, which runs around January to February depending which programs you apply for, and you can always make it up. So really just talk to your preceptor and work around the rotation conflicts, because most preceptors too are very generous and accommodating and understanding when it comes to residency interviews. If you have multiple interviews, can you really coordinate them, especially if they're in the same city? Especially when you travel outside of state. So sometimes the program will offer you a date, but you can counter offer and say, hey, I haven't, is it possible that I do XYZ? So there's some room for negotiation. I know sometimes it's intimidating. We're like, man, I got an interview, I can't say no to them. I'm not saying telling you to no, but you can negotiate with them. And as a previous resident who interviewed for other future residents, we work with you guys. We know your schedule. We know that we're not the only program you're applying to. So if it happens to be in the same city, you're traveling out of state, I would try to coordinate as many as possible in that block or that week, just so you don't have to keep paying airfare and coming back for multiple times. And overall, it may be cheaper just to have a chain of one-way flights to get to your destination. So really be able to be creative when it comes to traveling, because it is expensive. Oftentimes most programs don't pay for your airfare or hotels. Some do. If they don't offer, don't ask. If they do offer, graciously take them, because it's rare and far and few between that they pay for hotel or airfare, or sometimes they will pay for hotel but not airfare. So it really depends on the program. But if they don't do it, don't ask, because they will tell you straight up if they do pay for any of the items. And you also want to look at flights. Maybe consider driving too as an option. So it really depends on you. There's some websites that I rely on, like Priceline Kayak, or even Southwest and Spirit. But just know that Spirit has delays, and if you're time sensitive, I wouldn't recommend taking Spirits, because delays, it's very likely with Spirit. Southwest, more likely, where they will have less delays and more on time. So it really depends on, again, where you're traveling and just trying to find the best deals. The sooner you know, the better, of course. I think most programs are very respectable in terms of giving you advance notice as much as they can. And if not, driving is always an option, depending how far it is. And then next is, where will you stay? So again, hotel, but I'm pretty sure you guys can also look at Airbnb. I use Airbnb for a lot of my travel, and including residency interviews, and they are handy and helpful. And then you also want to ask about the programs. How long will you need to stay? Most of the program interviews are typically no longer than a day, start in the morning, finish in the afternoon. Some programs might be longer depending on what you do, especially if you do industry fellowship. That might be a multi-day interviews. But if you're doing PGY1 or PGY2, most of the time it's a one-day thing. But you really just want to ask as well. Plus there might be some events outside of the actual interview day, so it could be like a dinner right before the day of the interview, just so they want to get to know you a little bit outside of the formal atmosphere and get to know you and socialize with you. So really trying to ask those questions up front so you can plan your travels accordingly. Next thing, how will you get to and from airport, hotel, and interview? Especially if you're not driving, you're gonna be there, renting a car, or you're gonna use Uber or public transit. If you have a friend, ask them to help you, or not neighbors, but family members, etc. But this is the time that you want to utilize all your resources and save money, because it's gonna be super expensive, and if anything you can do to cut down that cost, more power to you. You could even use like ride sharing, like Super Shuttle, depending on your travel. And then sometimes, and some programs are very generous, and some residents are very nice. If you, for some reason, can't afford or having difficulty getting shuttle buses or rides or public transit, and you're at a bind, some of the residents offer to pick you up from the airport. You just have to let them know in advance, because they also have to go to work and stuff. So keep that as an option, and always have their phone numbers handy, because they will come to your rescue if you need to. You're their guest, and they will do their best to really give you as much of their courtesy and hospitality as they can. But you also want to be respectful of their time and their offer too, by being giving them as much heads up as you can. And then you also want to check out the city. If you've never been there before, you also want to leave some time to check out is this the type of city you want to live in. For me, when I went up north, I was like, nope. It was in February, it was snowing. I'm like, oh man. So just really think about other quality of life things. I know 1 year is not a long time, but it can be a long time if you don't like the program or the city. So really give yourself, I know most of you guys are students, so you probably don't have that much luxury to spend, days at a city for an interview, but just at least a few hours here and there, so you can kind of see a feel for the city, and if this is something that you want to come to the city. And also think about the weather, because that's also important. All right, so in terms of what to expect or prepare for an interview, most of the time it will take a full day, like I said. Some program can be a little bit more than that. You will have either a case workup or a presentation of some kind. Some programs would actually give you a heads up on the presentation topic and have you prepare in advance. Most likely for clinical, they have you do like a case workup and present to a panel, and they'll ask you a question. Those are very typical. Overall, they were just trying to assess your clinical knowledge, but they know that you only finished half of a year rotation. So that's why I recommend, for those P3s and below that are listening, recommend to get your clinical rotation early on if you're thinking about residency, because it will come handy when it comes to these type of interviews. And then in terms of questions to be prepared for, really typical, like use 5-star method to help answer the question. A lot of them are going to be situational, things that you expect, your strengths, your weaknesses. Think about some clinical interventions that you have done on your rotations, conflicts, what you want to get out of residency, your career plans, why you want to pursue your residency with them specifically. So those are all typical questions that you should be expecting to answers. I wouldn't say rehearse them and repeat them like robotic, but at least have an outline and kind of have an answer. So when there's 1,000 ways of asking the question, but they really all have the same theme, either conflicts, strengths and weaknesses, teamwork, how you handle stressful situation, things like that. Again, it's a way for them to see how you are and predict your future success based on your past decisions. I hope this was helpful. Again, this is a checklist and more logistics on interviews and preparing for it. I'm going to do one on questions to ask the residents specifically on the interview, so stay posted. Thanks guys.